Good evening, everyone. This is the initial entry of Periscope's TV's speaker series on words of wisdom. Several speakers from around the world are going to participate, and I am privileged to be one of them. Many great speakers from across the country are going to be participating. I am graced to be the only clergy to be a part thus far. I want to invite you to invite as many followers as you possibly can to be a part of this. Ask that you'll slide your screen from left to right. That only applies if you're using Apple. However, if you're on Android, I want you to go from the bottom to the top, and by that way you'll be able to invite as many people as you possibly can. I'm going to be sharing tonight on principles from principles from Prince in this wisdom series. So there are a couple of things that I want you to be aware and cognizant of. As a consequence, as I give you these points and these principles, I invite you to write them down, to share them, and to send it to make it apply to your everyday life. Principles from Prince. This is volume 1 from Words of Wisdom on behalf of Periscope TV. Let me first thank the staff and the owners of Periscope for giving me this privilege to be one of the very first speakers in this series. Let's first define what is a prince. A prince is the son of the king, who is in fact a part of a royal monarchy and is next in line. One of the things that we know about Prince is that he would never wait in line, but he assumed that he was not next, but he was now. One of my favorite songs by Prince was a song entitled Let's Go Crazy. He almost opens up with his own obituary, his own eulogy, when he says, dearly beloved, we have gathered today to get through this thing called life, electric word life. It's a mighty long time. I jump down to the third stanza and he says, when the elevator tries to break you down, go crazy. It is almost a twisted place of irony that when it is that Prince was in fact found dead, he was found dead in an elevator. And the elevator, according to detectives, was going up. The very first principle, a very easy one, is I want it recorded for your life. Let it be said, you died trying to go up, trying to go to the next level, trying to go to the next place. Never satisfied on the place and in the dimension you were in, but realizing that there was something greater for your life. The artist formerly known as Prince, as it is that he was going through an incredible season of his life, trying to break away from a record industry that wanted to enslave him and take his name. Here's what I want you to know. He first signed his first record deal at 18 years of age. And he originally signed with CBS Records. And signing with CBS Records, they gave him a 3-record deal. And in the 3-record deal, it's going to blow you away. They said the only way that you can go forward is you have to allow Verdine White of Earth, Wind, and Fire to produce your first album. He said, absolutely not. They said, this is the best mentor for you. Why? Because they use full band, full musicians, and you need that tutelage. He said, while they are great, I recognize my own greatness, and walked away from the deal. I want to say to somebody, when you are confident with your own gift, your skill set, and your ability, it doesn't matter what anybody else has done before you. The task and charge over your life is to be greater and to surpass everything and everybody people thought would be great. And as a consequence, he left CBS Records with no contract, saying, I would rather find greatness in my own voice than sign on to somebody else. Another incredible principle that you may not know is that he asked the incredible legendary artist Stevie Nicks to write Purple Rain for him. She tried to do so, and the song came out at 12 minutes. She became frustrated and flustered and said, I can't do it. I'm giving the song back to you because I cannot handle all of the weight that comes with trying to create Purple Rain. He took the song back away from Stevie Nicks, hunkered down in Minneapolis, and produced one of the greatest songs in musical history. Why? Because he had to do it, watch this, when somebody else refused to help him. It is amazing how many people are burdened and upset because you were rejected because somebody refused to give you aid and assistance. And you don't even know that sometimes it was not their rejection, but God's acceptance of your own assignment of realizing you don't need somebody else's aid and somebody else's assistance to get to the next level. One of the critical moments in Prince's life outside of Purple Rain is that he had two groups. One was the Revolution. The second was the New Power generation. Both of those groups were respectively able to produce 2 to 3 albums respectively. But he broke up with both of those groups and was still able to acquire high acclaim. This is going to be so pivotal and so critical for many of you who are watching this tonight. How well can you produce, hear this, after a breakup? Not what can you do when you're with somebody while you're producing, but can you perform after things don't go well? Can you still emanate the prowess and the greatness of what's in you after you thought you would always be together? And I'm not even just talking about somebody you dated. I'm talking about how can you produce after a grandmother passed, after you lost that job, after you didn't graduate. The real sign of your excellence is can you produce after the group didn't work out, after things fall apart, after it is that you go through one of the greatest travails of your own life. One of the catchphrases of Prince's contract is that he had to find another group to produce. Many of you may not know it, but I want you to be aware of it, is that Time's first album, led by Morris Day, Time's first album, every instrument on the album and the background tracks were first produced by Prince. He made up in his mind, for me to have the right sound, I can mentor other people, but I've got to do it first. Never ask somebody to mentor you who is not prepared to do where you're trying to go. If they're not willing to make the sacrifice, if they're not willing to take all of the burden and all of the assassination attempts on your character and your gift, they're not the right kind of mentor. Find the kind of mentor who will go the extra mile and not talk about it through philosophy, but in fact talk about it through praxis. John Fitzgerald Kennedy said, if you want to see a great success, look for a great failure. Because anybody who is successful at something had to, in fact, fail first. Prince is, in fact, an amazing model and a paradigm for many of us in understanding that your greatness is, in fact, on how you can write your own narrative, how you can write your own story. The reality is, ladies and gentlemen, they've just discovered that Prince had 600 unrecorded albums in the vault, so that generations yet unborn will not have to listen to old music, but will in fact experience sounds and songs that we've not even encountered yet. The real grasp of your greatness is, can the legacy of your success outlive you? Many of you are settling for just being rich. There is nothing about greatness and being rich. Your greatness is, in fact, developing wealth. In developing wealth, what is the difference? Being rich is you're able to buy bags and shoes and go to trips. But developing wealth understands that the generation that comes behind me will do so much better than me. You ought to live a life that suggests, I want those that come behind me to do better than me, to go further than me, and to find what it is that nobody else was ever able to do. There were those in Rolling Stone magazine that suggested that Prince in his early years, watch this, Prince in his early years was Jimi Hendrix. Prince refuted the comparison and said they only draw the comparison because of my race. But if they look beyond my skin and listen to my sound, they'll realize he's not even in my weight class. Never let somebody reduce the comparison of who you are just by what has already existed. If in fact you are an authentic trailblazer, let history record there was nobody like you before you, and there'll be nobody like you after you. You are often imitated, but you are never duplicated. Why? Because you are an original. Long before there were Apple phones, long before there were Androids, it is amazing that outside of the innovation of sound, it was in fact Prince Rogers Nelson Jr. who in fact used the emoji. That whenever he wrote you, watch this, he always wrote the letter in his diary and songs, even going back to 10th grade. It is also significant that whenever he wrote I, he never used the letter I, but would draw out an I, saying that I can see beyond myself, and I can see what does not yet exist, but I see myself in a greater place. Here's a critical moment. You'll remember that while he was in fact in high litigation trying to secure his own sound, his own music, his own discography, he wrote on the side of his face, a slave, because they wanted to take ownership of his birth name. His literal name on his birth certificate is Prince. His father had the Prince Jazz Trio. I want to ask you a critical question. If in fact you lost your name, what is the symbol that would be accorded to your life? What would you be known as? Would the symbol of your life be that of a beggar, always having your hand out, waiting for somebody else to help you? What would be the symbol of your life? You say that you're a Christian, but when people think of you, does a cross come to mind? What would be the symbol of your life? Would it be the sign of subtraction? Because you're always losing and never gaining ground. I want to challenge you. Live a life beyond words and find a symbol. John Wesley, the father of Methodism, said, preach often, but only use words when necessary. There's got to be a symbol that suggests, let the works I've done speak for me. We've lost an incredible gift, an incredible icon, an incredible genius. He is a rare breed of artists who is able to say, written, produced, arranged, and performed by Prince. I want at the end of your life for you to be able to rest in knowing, written, produced, arranged, and performed by God. God has already written the soundtrack of your life, because the Bible declares, while you were in your mother's womb, I knew you. The greatest principle from Prince is not to wear purple, is not to wear high-heeled shoes, is not to wear makeup, but in the words of Shakespeare, to thine own self, always be true. We recognize a legend, but if in fact you're going to be different, you're going to in fact have to be legendary. To be great is never to be safe, but to be great is to understand I've got to do what nobody else has ever done before. Houston, we got a problem. There are thousands of people watching Periscope tonight who refuse to die a copy because they know they were born to be an original. I salute Prince because he was a man of innovation, a man of change, and a man who in fact bring an amalgamation of sound, funk, rhythm, blues, rock and roll, and so that all of America, all of the world will know, 5 Grammys later, 100 million records sold. There is but one Prince who in fact changed music as we know it. Go make a difference, make a sound in the earth realm, and know that the world is waiting for you not to be like anybody else, but for you to be an original. Thank you, Periscope, for giving me this opportunity.